Pros and cons of sexual reproduction. There are two different types of reproduction. There's asexual, which is the process in which only one parent is involved in giving birth to a progeny. This progeny is produced as a total identical match to the parent in genetic makeup, and the gestation period is very short, and chances of mutation are less likely, because if you're cloning from the parent, the same genes, and disease resistance is common with the progeny. Whereas in sexual reproduction, the process is more complex for organisms, and that involves the combination of two parents and creates a new organism who is the combination of both parents. The diploid copy of genes favors evolution of a dominant species with less number of mutations and genetic defects, and this complex gestation period in sexual reproduction is very long. Asexual reproduction, A means without, so this is to organisms that reproduce without sex or fertilization. And with no recombination of genes occurring, the chances of evolution are very low. And if the parent has any abnormal genetic material, this gets passed on to the offspring as well. Because once again, if you copy and paste with any mistakes or errors in makeup, it'll be passed on. This is the breakdown to reproduce. Here on the left is the asexual. You see the parent gene split into two, which is an exact replica, and it turns into two separate different organisms. Whereas in asexual, you have a green and a blue cell coming together, mutating, making a new offspring. So here's some thoughts. There's just four for an example here. There's the parthenogenesis, binary fission, budding, and fragmentation. Those are just four types of asexual reproduction. Budding, fragmentation, spore formation, vegetative propagation, binary fission, which I mentioned a couple of those, and regeneration. Those are all of the different forms of asexual reproduction. And living organisms all have one thing in common, and they need to reproduce to continue on the species. So this keeps evolution going with sexual reproduction and keeps species from going extinct, helps bud out the weaker, less healthy of the organisms, and it allows the healthy ones to reproduce and continue on. Food and medicine production is important to exist through asexual reproduction, because without these, certain bacteria and fungi that we use in medicine and foods would not exist. And there are also some species of fish and sharks that can create an embryo without a male. In sexual reproduction, reproduction is very important to produce new offspring, as there are chances that the nucleus of the male gamete could not be capable of fusing with the female gamete. And only half of the population that is female species are capable of gestation. And I listed an example of some species here. The elephant, African elephant, has a gestation period of 22 months, which is amazing. And then a smaller animal, such as a hamster, could produce offspring in as little as 20 days. So if only humans were so lucky to have a short pregnancy. Genetic variation from both parents is vital to evolution, and encouraging genetic variations for future healthy species. And then again, I just listed two of the reproductions here. 50 chromosomes in asexual being split into two, creating a perfect daughter cell. And then the female egg, which has 23 chromosomes, combining with the male sperm, which is 23 chromosomes, coming together for fertilization, making a zygote. That's 46 chromosomes in 23 pairs. That makes an embryo, which has 46 chromosomes in 23 pairs. And detrimental reproduction, I made this research on hypoxia, which was done back in 2021. This occurred in global coastal and estuarine waters and had detrimental impacts on marine fauna. And the total superoxide dismutase activity increased significantly in low oxygen treatments. Catalase and lactate dehydrogenase activities first increased and then decreased with the dropping DO concentrations. And these results suggest that hypoxia has multiple impacts on marine zooplankton, and this could very well adversely affect higher trophic level organisms and the structure and function of marine ecosystems. And then I listed another example here from Physiology and Reproduction. Second example, this affects reproduction occurred all thanks to Bisphenol A, which is used all over the world in plastic manufacturing. This is one of the most abundant chemical environmental pollutants. And this BPA is known to affect fish reproduction via estrogen receptors, but as research continues, BPA affects almost all aspects of fish physiology. The possible modes of action include genomic as well as non-genomic mechanisms, estrogen and androgen, and thyroid receptor mediated effects. And because of all of this research that went into this BPA, there is now various analogs of BPA being used as alternatives to help cut down on this dilution of fish reproduction. And then these are just my references.